Hello out there in cryptocurrency land. Welcome back to Real Crypto, where we take the market one leg at a time while keeping the market cycle in mind. And we have a sixth day in a row that Bitcoin is going down. Currently, we have about 10 hours left in the day today, so I guess in theory it could pull around, but so far it doesn't look like it's going to. Looks like we're in the middle of a slow meltdown, and I have three arrows on my chart here. These show you each of the times we've gone down 6 days in a row. One was basically the top area. We went down for 6 days in a row, ending with a huge capitulation candle, going all the way from what was 15, almost 16,000 down to 10,500. So a massive day right there. And then the last time we had a 6 day in a row was right here, the failure of the top of 11,775. Two very key areas for Bitcoin. And maybe this proves to be the next key area for Bitcoin. We'll have to wait and see. This one ended up with a little, just a little pause before a continued downside movement. It looks like there's a bit of a measured move there as well. Kind of giving you an idea of where it went. So you can see right there, it basically pointed you right to where it was going. Was going right down there towards those lows, which caused the kind of big W we've been looking at, and also that long trend line, putting in one of those highs there. So I have some nice pretty pink trend lines on my chart today. These actually work really well, I think, against the background. So I'm keeping these for right now. And if we get a nice little consolidation here, because we're not going to go down forever, ladies and gentlemen. We're definitely not going to go down forever. But if we get a nice little consolidation, we'll probably point to another retest of this 5,800 level. And that 5,800 level would not be a good thing to retest, okay? In time, we should break this. The more times we go down towards a particular level and test it, the more likely we are to break it. And another retest of the 5,800 level at this point in time, I don't know. At some point, I think it's going to break, and we're just going to head lower. That's pretty much how the chart reads to me. We talked a few videos ago about this run up here where it could go, and looks like it went there and exceeded it slightly, which is fairly normal. But we did get above this trend line, which I actually did not think we would get above this trend line, but we did. Also thought we would find some resistance at the 200-day, and it actually did show resistance at the 200-day moving average. Now, moving back into the triangle is very bearish. That's very bearish. A move of this fashion out should not come back in. There should be a retest, and then it should curl back out, but it shouldn't come immediately back into the trend line. That is technically not healthy action. That means this is what's called a bull trap. Traps the bulls in, and then more than likely it results in a move through both of the trend lines in fairly quick fashion. But I don't know if that's the case today. I don't know if this particular run is going to get us a move all the way through. I think probably what's likely to happen is that this trend line becomes a moot point. We have to take it off of our chart and basically fly blind. So there you go. Safety net has been negated. Now, the next level of support I've already got drawn on my chart is the 6,850 level, or 6,800, depending on where you want to call it. And that's going to be the next level of support, which is the neckline of this lovely inverted head and shoulders pattern. Now, we could come down here and bounce off of this, and a high volume bounce would probably put the ball back into the Bulls' court. I don't believe right now, though, that you have the ball in the Bulls' court. I don't think you can plan on a bounce off of this level. Usually a bounce like this would happen fairly quick. Maybe coming off of this base, going down and retesting and coming up. Testing from a much higher level is actually bearish action. And while this doesn't imply immediately that we go back down into brand new lows, what it does imply is that the market uptrend is essentially dead, and we're either going to go into the sideways choppy area, or we're going to go into new lows. Those would be the two things that I think we could imply right now out of this price action. And if you take a look at a lot of the top altcoins too, guys, and stick around for this, we're gonna do that. Let's take a look at Bitcoin Cash. We'll take a look at some other ones. We've had some trend lines drawn in these top three altcoins on GDAX for quite some time, and they all have the same type of a chart pattern. Bitcoin Cash breaking down from a bear flag pattern. Keep in mind, this is at lows, at least on Coinbase, or GDAX, whatever you want to call it, Coinbase Pro GDAX. Obviously, there's some more price action down below here. It actually based down at about $300, but I don't have that shown on the GDAX chart here. But this would be new lows for this whole overall move. And then we have Ethereum doing some not really healthy action, breaking down from its bear flag and actually testing recent lows. And I believe a complete breakdown of these recent lows will put into play this 350 level and probably will take us lower as well, which would be very bad for the overall altcoin market. You've got Litecoin, which is kind of Bitcoin sentiment machine, if you will, and Bitcoin sentiment machine is living lower in a bear flag similar to Ethereum. Right here you can see not quite taking out recent lows, but looking like it wants to. The volume is just very low, and there's no one really propping up the price at this moment in time. So unless a big whale comes in, Litecoin is probably due for lower prices. Down at $75, really the price is pretty demolished at this point. We've broken all support from the bull run. This was pretty much your last bastion of support from that bull run, and as you can see, we've really failed that. Now, we had a head and shoulders pattern up here that took us down to 110 or 85. We've hit both of those targets, which was really weird. And now we're into old territory, going back to, third quarter, fourth quarter of 2017. And we're probably will and should have some strong resistance going way back here. But if we're looking back this far in time, ladies and gentlemen, it's pretty weak. That takes us back to $58, this prior high, and kind of chopping around this action. I think that's going to be probably your next line of major support on Litecoin. But we're in territory where a lot of people think things are extremely undervalued. And however you value a cryptocurrency, please leave a comment down below. I'm not quite sure how to do that to tell you what is a good value. But as you guys can see, by pretty much any charts in crypto, cryptos can be extremely overvalued and extremely undervalued, okay? I think cryptos from the jump have been a little bit undervalued, but since then we've got quite inflated, which led to this extreme bear market that we're in, and we're probably in for more of a bear market. So going to what I was talking about earlier in terms of some top altcoins and showing you what the market's doing there and how kind of bearish and how weak it is. I want to look at a few charts here. I want to look at first I want my browser to catch up. There we go. So this is the top 20 USD altcoins. I have this on my chart here. I also have top 20 Bitcoin altcoins. Okay, I want to keep an eye on both of these to see how things are going. And we also have the Power Hour spreadsheet, which is something we track in the Power Hour. Now against the US dollar, you're going to notice VET is just completely obliterated and destroyed. But more importantly than that, you've got quite a few top altcoins. And I made a video on this a while ago about these long-term trend lines, and this is kind of the bonus part to this video, but these long-term trend lines and the top altcoins really haven't been broken yet, but they're on their way to breaking, okay? And I think that's really important. We have Ethereum with a very long-term trend line here, breaking that little bear flag, which, does imply much lower prices. I don't necessarily think this is a measured move that plays out, but it's what the chart implies. I doubt we're getting to 82 in Ethereum. That's pretty bombastic, to be quite honest with you. I don't know if we can get down to 82 in Ethereum, but that's what this measured move would imply if you take this as a bear flag and this is the prior downtrend. So I'm going to take that off the chart. Go ahead and yell at me in the comments if you want about that, but that's pretty much what the chart tells you, is that we're headed for much deeper cuts into altcoin prices. XRP has been a little bit of a I don't want to say bastion of hope, because the chart doesn't look bullish whatsoever, but we do have support at this prior high over here. If this support were to break, we would have a break of this trend line in play. And talking about extremely overpriced and extremely underpriced, don't be fooled into thinking this is a fair valuation for anything, okay? We had extreme bull runs in many of these altcoins, and we'll talk about that. But just because something was $2 or $4 at one point doesn't mean it's a fair price for that asset. And you're seeing that right now. You're seeing that everything's coming back down to what would probably be considered fair prices. And whenever we do find a bottom, that will probably be an extreme low, and the value will be somewhere in the middle. But hopefully we don't stay in the middle. Hopefully, we want to go back up into extreme highs. Bitcoin Cash, you can see something similar. This is Bitfinex. This is a much longer term chart. Here's Bitcoin Cash's long-term trend line about to break with a bear flag sitting right on top of it. We've got EOS with a long-term trend line against the dollar here. You can see right there. And EOS had two big bull runs. One was this first one, And this was due to the news that they were going to have 1,100 dApps on their network. And that's when this one took off. The second one was the accumulation due to the coin swap. So we're sitting here on a trend line that's been tested a number of times. The question is here, if you think we're going to have a big bull run bouncing off of this trend line, what you have to ask yourself is, what is the catalyst? There's going to be a catalyst for moves, and EOS has had two big catalysts. What is the third going to be? After the mainnet launch, and it hasn't gone extraordinarily successfully, so I don't know what the big catalyst is for a third launch. And as we get lower here in the coin market cap, what you're going to notice is we have these long-term trend lines that are broken. So the top altcoins have yet to break their trend lines, which is why you see the altcoin still is kind of held up relatively well. But what you have starting with XLM here is a break of this long-term trend line. We have a test here, and now we chopped around it, living below it again. Although XLM, if it stays above this particular point of 1675, and this is against the dollar, then we do have a bastion of hope that we can curl back up. But this trend line's been broken, which does kind of put a point in the bear's court. Litecoin also has its long-term trend line broken right there, and we have a bear flag sitting just beneath of that. Cardano, and again, we're going in order of the top 20 altcoins, and I'm saying that as I'm waiting for my coin or my chart to render here. We've got Cardano going all the way back to what I believe is the ICO and breaking that long-term trend line. IOTA, we have two trend lines. One is an extremely low sloping trend line. One is a more normalized trend line, and that one's broken. This one is in danger. We have Tron, which has a low sloping trend line, which is its trend line. You can see here been broken. So again, guys, don't think that all of these spikes in these coins are fair market valuations. People talk about fundamentals and things, but if you're going to talk about fundamentals, you need to talk about fair market valuations. And this is not a fair market valuation for Tron. Believe it or not, I am a crypto fan. I do not believe crypto is worth $800 billion right now. VET, a recent spin-off of Venn, taking us much lower. So if you just take this coin swap price, we are down about 36% right now. So if we put Venn back on the chart here, which we can still do, luckily, look at Venn in dollar and go back. I already forgot what the number was. 36%. Go back 36, 37% for the last time we had a ticker in Venn. 36%. So right there, from $1.50 down to $1. Okay, so you can see right there, we bounced up higher, came lower again, and now we're lower in Venn. Just to keep things in perspective. And then we've got NEO sitting at $27. We've been talking about NEO the past couple days in the Power Hour. Hopefully, we were looking for a bounce off of this, but we didn't get it. There's actually a high volume accumulation of this against Bitcoin, even a little bit off the dollar. You see the high volume area there. A break of this low would put us into territory, and new low territory. And here's those two trend lines living beneath both of those long-term trend lines. XMR, here's a very low sloping trend line, and here's a very a more aggressive trend line indicative of this bull run completely breaking. And now we're probably going to come down and retest this. We already had one spike low retest of it. We have Dash, which has its trend line broken. Is there more to go in this chart? There should be more to go in this chart. There we go. And here's the trend line in Dash, broken, retested, still failed. Ethereum Classic, broken that trend line. This is a very long-term trend line, very low sloping. But Ethereum Classic has broken its trend line. NEM, broken its long-term trend line. I'm even giving it a little bit of wiggle room here. Okay. BNB holding up very well against the dollar. BNB, if you're not familiar, is Binance's in-house coin, if you will. And so you can see this is holding up pretty well. So Binance, one of these stronger altcoins, but again, it's only traded within Binance. Omisego breaking a very long-term trend line and a key support level of $7.50 or $8, depending on what you want to call it. I've been calling it $7.50, but down at $5.30, really heading lower. Zcash down here, headed lower. Qtum as well headed lower. If I can click on Qtum. So there's Qtum's long-term trend line. You can see the trend is overall down. So what you have to ask yourself, ladies and gentlemen, if Ethereum is the bellwether for the altcoins, and we're at $400 in Ethereum, which is not a bad price. It's not a horrible price. There's lots of more downside we can have here in Ethereum. Some of these other top altcoins that aren't as high quality, that the charts just look horrible, you have to ask yourself and be honest with yourself. How much lower can we go? Do the altcoins signal a bottom for Bitcoin? Or does Bitcoin point us lower? Because Bitcoin can go much lower, ladies and gentlemen. Keep that in mind. Whether you believe it or not, we've seen prices as low as 86% from the highs in Bitcoin. And as I've said over here in Real Crypto many times, that's 85% right there at about let's just call it, where's my ticker not showing up there? About $3,000. This is historically what can happen. So if Bitcoin does roll over here, we do have a series of higher lows in place, which we've talked about here on the channel. We've talked about a series of higher lows. If I can draw the line. Come on. We talked about a series of higher lows. Lower highs in Bitcoin, which we have that. Series of lower highs in Bitcoin, potentially leading, maybe we get another bounce down here, who knows? Series of lower highs, potentially leading to lower prices. And if that happens, and this altcoin market sells off a ton, does this Ethereum 85 thing play out? That would be crazy to me if $85 Ethereum would play out, to be quite honest with you. But if that happens, that would really, really obliterate many of these altcoins back to levels that we haven't seen in a long time. And what you have to ask yourself then is, what does the market look like then? Is it healthy for a straight V bounce out of that? Or is everyone so depressed by that moment in time that we have an extremely long bear market ahead of us? Or do altcoins buck the trend? So we're stuck between a rock and a hard place here. We're stuck with a Bitcoin that's implying lower prices. Even though we have a double bottom here, we have also 3 consecutive lower highs. We have an Ethereum, if it'll go to it, with a bear flag, which is the bellwether for all the altcoins. This is kind of the index of the altcoins, and then Bitcoin is obviously its own market, dragging Bcash along with it. But you've got Ethereum with a bear flag kind of drifting lower. How's this going to play out? I actually don't know. I don't know how this is going to play out. We have to let the market give us the answer to that story. We just have to be aware of the possibilities. And one of the possibilities is that this market does have extreme low market caps, and a lot of people are just taken out of this market. But I do believe in time crypto will come back. I'm just not sure if it's on this, retest of the trend line, a spike below, which would coincide with a Bitcoin retest of 5,800, and then we go back out of it. Or does this unprecedented altcoin market, because keep in mind, guys, there's been a lot of money made off these altcoins. But does this altcoin market really get taken out, and kind of the froth go by the sidelines and the good coins rise to the top? That's probably, I think, what's going to happen. We're going to see a lot of these altcoins reside lower in coin market cap, and a lot of the top altcoins sitting higher on the throne. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, that's kind of a very large picture view of the cryptocurrency market. And if you can assimilate all that information, I threw a lot at you, do your own research, look at the altcoins, look at the price action, look for support levels, look for things like that, things where things could turn around. There's a possibility that we do bounce into a bull market, but just because things have historically been much higher doesn't mean that those are fair valuations for these currencies. And a coin is only worth what anyone will pay for it at any given moment in time. And that is a reality. So, all right, guys, thanks for joining me today. I appreciate you joining me. Please subscribe if you like the channel and the content. Please like the video if you like the video, and I will see you next time.